Alright, so this video is the scapular protraction part of the mechanics series. So first of all, the scapula is the shoulder blade, and let's show what scapular protraction and also retraction is, just so you see them compared to each other. So from a neutral position with my arm by my side, this will differ from person to person how much they are in scapular protraction or retraction here, but I'm going to try to keep that neutral position, raise my arm, and move my body now to get my elbow on this beam here. This shoulder angle here is 90 degrees. If I do scapular protraction, see how far my elbow crease has gone, a few inches, back to neutral. Now retraction, again elbow crease has gone a couple inches. Alright, so now in a power pocket position, I'll do another separate video more on the power pocket, starting again with a neutral position, bending the elbow 90 degrees and keeping this 90 degrees. In neutral, the disc is already touching my chest, barely have room for it. With protraction and the elbow at 90 degrees, I have plenty of room. Back to neutral. Retraction, I can't even retract without changing something like the disc orientation this way, or this is briefcase, or I call this anti-briefcase, or widening the elbow angle to give me more space. So I'll go into briefcase and then retract. Now, that's what that looks like. If you were to instead go into anti-briefcase and retract, it would look like this, but it's very hard to hold the disc like this. I'm struggling to hold it like this. And so what would likely happen if you were feeling crowded for space here and tilt the disc this way is you would tilt it that way with external shoulder rotation and elbow drop if you didn't have the space and your body was maybe trying to reactively do something to create some space here. You can externally rotate without dropping the elbow, but then you get this also weird position. So external rotation usually also drops the elbow. So scapular protraction can help add space to your pocket, and that can help make it easier to not mess up other things with your pocket because you feel you have enough space for it. Also, I think there's a temptation with scapular protraction to also raise your elbow kind of in addition to it. So if I don't need a disc for this, if I put my elbow kind of touching my body here and I just think about doing scapular protraction, my elbow just wants to come up. I can do scapular protraction while keeping my elbow down. Looks like that. But there's just more of an automatic temptation to bring it up as well. So now, of course, when you're bringing it up, you might be tempted to also shrug, and you don't want to do that. That's called scapular elevation. Scapular depression is the opposite of shrugging. All right, here's a great way to feel how scapular protraction can protect against this horizontal collapse that is so common. Horizontal collapse is when this angle here collapses smaller than 90 degrees. Usually when it collapses all the way until the upper arm touches the chest here, and then the disc is stuck here and you're just rounding. It's very easy for it to happen, especially when you're trying to throw harder, and especially when you're trying to pull, where you get that scapular retraction I told you about. And if you do scapular retraction but don't get into a deep pocket, it's very easy to now get into this position and not have the space. So find a wall corner like this, or you can do it on a lot of things, a pole, a tree trunk, and try to start with your scapula in a neutral position, raise your arm, and then bend your elbow 90 degrees. And then if you're too far away from the wall, move towards it so you're not changing your scapular position. So in this neutral position, now if I rotate and I'm slightly relaxed, if I rotate my body forward kind of like I'm uncoiling, not completely accurate, but you can see my upper arm very easily collapses. Similarly, if I retract and I rotate, my upper arm collapses very easily. If I try to drive my elbow into the wall, that's called horizontal abduction. If the wall wasn't there, it would widen this shoulder angle. Horizontal abduction, the arm is being abducted away from the body. So with retraction, if I try to drive the elbow there to stop the collapse and I twist my body forward, it's very hard to stop because your arm is being overpowered by stronger, full body power here. Of course, this is an immovable wall, and so high level athletes can get their arm going fast enough into a deep pocket to make it work.
Not only high level athletes, but people who practice this a lot can do it too.
But try it again now with scapular protraction. Push your elbow forward. You may want to stand back further from the wall. And now once I've protracted, you can see how different this looks here. It's so much more spacious here. It's like it's hard to even see where the 90-degree angle is because here it is. But now this is all stretched out. And now I'm not even gonna drive my elbow. Now as I go like this, as I uncoil, it's just naturally resisting the horizontal collapse. And additionally, the rebenefit is I feel it deeply stretching through my back now. So during the throw and the reach back, I'll make a separate video on the reach back. The reach back, you extend your elbow. That's not even that important. Way more important is the scapular protraction, because as you are coiled, the scapular protraction feels like it's connecting the arm into all that coiling tension with that stretch that you should have been able to feel on the wall, or you can even just feel it here if you coil a lot and try to max out your scapular protraction. Watch the coiling mechanics video for more on coiling. So this feels like it helps get the arm extra power through the whole coiling system. And then as you start to rotate, you'll feel that stretch deepen, that tension increase even more, like on the wall drill. And if you keep some of that scapular protraction into the pocket, you now end up with a lot of space in your pocket, which I think makes it easier to avoid problems that come from what your body intuitively tries to do when it feels like there's not enough space for the disc. All right, so there's different styles and preferences for throwing and theories, of course, but I think the protracting and the reach back, that's pretty common across all styles, but then trying to stay protracted as you come into the pocket.
Now in this swing style, I'm not saying that there's no room to have scapular retraction on the way into the pocket, but I think it will largely happen automatically and you don't need to try to help it. And if you start with a lot of scapular protraction, you have room for some small amount of explosive retraction to happen, but still have some protraction left over for your pocket to have space.
I think is simpler. I think it's easier to learn and to implement and to get to a good pocket without collapse because of what I showed with how it naturally makes it easier to avoid horizontal collapse and how protracting kind of has a temptation to raise your elbow as well. If this angle here is 90 degrees and you retract, then you're running out of space and you don't have that benefit of the horizontal collapse protection, so it's easy for horizontal collapse to happen. So I think this happens to a lot of amateurs. But if you retract and then widen this shoulder angle and your arm gets ahead of your rotation, now you're fine. So it can work, but I've found it more difficult, more advanced to do that.
A lot of people, coaches, and people who have learned a deeper pocket believe it has a higher speed potential. But we also have examples like this of the Finnish player Christian Kuoksa, who can throw over 700 feet. We can see his shoulder angle stays at 90 degrees during the pocket.
So some ways I've experimented with incorporating this into my throw, the scapular protraction, is during the setup, I get my elbow up and then I just scapular protraction. I'm already in scapular protraction, so now when I reach back, I just try to push it a little bit more, the scapular protraction, but it's already there. And I'm just trying to build muscle memory to do the scapular protraction before I've even thrown. It's just part of my setup, so my body's just getting used to always doing it, and then hoping it will kind of transfer into my pocket. But it's not easy for those old habits to go away. So then as I'm coming into the pocket, I can feel like coming into the pocket and then keep it out, scapular protraction. It feels like more of an outward motion. So making sure, is it out? Is it there? Am I doing it? As you're coming into the pocket, like elbowing a little bit away from you. And then another one that I felt is like as you reach back, I keep this scapular protraction in the reach back. I would just keep trying to hold that. Like I'm still trying to reach back as I'm starting to come into the pocket. Then the elbow bends and I still have that scapular protraction there.